every person that is an artist, an actor, or director, or whatever, you change, you grow, you grow.
Yeah.
You don't stay stagnant in a genre that you've done for 20 years because you're beating that horse. And so I would tell people to not listen to that. So when they feel inclined to shift and to explore and to experiment, do it. Because you should always do artwork for you.
Okay.
Never for anyone else. You should do it for you. It's either therapeutic, you've got something that you want to share with the world, so do it. But it's not because you want to become famous or rich or any of that shit. You want to do it because it helps you. It builds your character.
We'll see about that. It's too early to tell if it's good or not.
No.
I'm really glad you're here with us today, Daniel. And just for the viewers who are going to be watching this after it's recorded, Daniel is a personal friend of mine and an Atlanta treasure who works in fine arts. He's done so many different things. He's done charity work. He's notably one of the subjects of Hollis Gillespie's Moodswing and Creative Loafing, for the people that remember when Creative Loafing was still being printed. So, Daniel, how would you introduce yourself?
God, I don't know. Even at 59, it's kind of hard to wrap your head around how you see yourself, and how you view yourself as to the world. But an artist is really what I've always been and what I will always be. But yeah, I mean, I've done a little of everything. When I look back at my life, it's like, and I'm not even halfway finished. Well, I am.
You're very industrious. Like you've been kind of like, the word that comes to mind is thought leader, but you're more like a doer than just like a thought leader.
A lot of people, I'm like a fashion history savant, and I remember, because I was a little kid at the time, but there was a time period when Pierre Cardin was really big, huge. Yeah. I mean, big. Everybody, he was so respected, and he was a French treasure. And then he started putting his name, licenses his name on everything.
Yeah.
And it hit rock bottom when he literally put his logo on toilet paper.
It's very Dada. That's like Marcel Duchamp or something.
Late 70s. Yeah. It's interesting, but it's weird. But I have a love for vintage, and I've had a love for everything. Sculpting, painting. Now my new love is photography. So it swings the whole gamut.
Yeah. So say a little bit describe your photography to people who haven't seen it before, because what I appreciate about what you do is you shoot it all on film, the traditional way, and you're very committed to the difference between shooting something on film and shooting it digitally, and what that means for the interpretation of the piece. So I wanted to get it from you, what you find interesting about it.
I've always loved the art of photography. When I pick up a camera, or any photographer picks up a camera, and they take a picture of whatever, they're capturing that moment that only existed like at that second. And that's what I've always liked about photography. But I have my own dark room, and I can take the roll of film and I can process it and turn that into the negatives, and then I can go into the dark room and print the negatives out. I had to I had to learn how to do that. And it
Yeah.
was so interesting and so fun. And there aren't a lot of dark rooms left in the city anymore, which is kind of sad. But
Yeah, who was helping you out initially when you were first getting into it before you had the dark room? What were you doing?
yeah, I took classes at Callanwolde, and then
Okay.
I took classes at it was a wonderful art center. It's no longer around, but it was called Wonderroot. And
Okay.
Wonderroot was, oh gosh, it was so wonderful. And it was really catered for artists that wanted to, I mean, for a class to learn the dark room, a dark room class was like, I think it was like $30. They used to have, a ceramic place. You could go in and you could build and use the wheel and paint and use the kiln and everything. And the classes were nothing. So it was
Yeah.
meant for artists to really go in there and have an outlet. So I learned really at Wonderroot and Callanwolde. And growing up, my brother was a really good photographer, and his I think it was his junior and senior year in high school, he took all the photos. So he knew the dark room, and I went into the dark room with him, and I remember at the time watching him, print and do everything in the dark room, and I thought, God, that's so cool. Um, but I really didn't go down that road until I didn't do photography until I was, in my early 50s.
Hmm.
I I I hate to say this, but I feel like I wasted a lot of time. I
Why do you think you stayed away from it for so long?
I don't know. I don't know. I was intrigued by, for the first time that I started to do any kind of art was with found objects. Like
Yeah.
I loved salvaging things. I loved finding things, and I would find old rocking chairs, old pieces of furniture, old screen from windows, even just everything, and put those together and arrange them to where they look like people, but they were
Yeah.
all found objects. And I was doing this like, oh my God, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And but it was everything that I wanted to save and turn into art. And I needed to go down that road. I think I needed to to have that kind of a background. And then from there, from the found objects, I went to painting,
Yeah.
like abstract painting, um, and so it really ran the whole gamut. And I guess I shouldn't say that I am disappointed or wish I could have gotten into it a little bit earlier, because I don't know. I think everything you do in life kind of leads you to where you are now. And I think, there has to be a reason why I wanted to save that piece of wood so that I could turn it into a sculpture, or I needed to paint that abstract painting to learn, the eye of photography, because a lot of people can take photos, but
Yeah.
it really is um, how you see it and how you view it. And I think maybe I needed that background so that I can view things sharp.
Yeah, you approach it with a certain degree of wisdom, and it's not for you, it's not just the photograph, it's the story behind it. So I wanted to, we'll get into this in a minute, but I wanted to just kind of pick your brain about what are the things that you want to photograph.
You know, I remember one of the instructors, and I can't remember if it was at Callanwolde or Wonderroot, but they said, when you're finished with this and you go out and you're going to make this your career or your hobby or whatever, think about what subject you really want to photograph. And I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to photograph people. I like looking, I like observing people. I like watching them, walk. I like shadows. I like when my partner Mitch and I were in Mexico back in September of last year. And that was great people watching. And I took a lot of photos. I think I took like maybe 2 or 3 rolls of film. And, it's just, I mean, people have always intrigued me. So I knew immediately I wanted to do that. And at the time when I was doing the photography is when I had launched my nonprofit that we helped to serve our unhoused neighbors and our community, and I as I did that for so long, I really built up a good rapport with a lot of people, and they I liked them. I loved them. They liked me, I think, and they would open up. When they saw my camera in the car or around my neck or whatever, because I always wore my camera, they would, sometimes they would say, "Hey, why don't you take a photo of me?" Sometimes I would ask them, but most of the time I really wanted to build that trust and that relationship. So I shot a lot of unhoused people from Atlanta. I documented that. I wanted to hear their story, and I always had a little notebook, and I would write down their names, and I would write down the date, and I would write down any story that they wanted to share, because, and I always wanted to do like a coffee table book on not just the photographs, but the stories.
Yeah.
And everyone has a freaking story, and that's what's so wonderful about it. Everybody's got a story.
That's kind of what's so amazing, is that you were able to build trust with this community. And just for the listeners at home, Daniel was running a nonprofit called YIMBY, which is Yes in My Backyard, and it was mostly just you providing meals to the unhoused, correct? I mean,
yeah. Well, we originally started with handing out supplies, like a backpack that was fully loaded. It had wipes, it had toilet paper, it had hygiene kits, it had a bar of soap and it had all kinds of stuff in there. And you could hand this to somebody, and it would carry them for a while. It had the supplies that they needed. And then the pandemic hit, and then I realized when I was downtown one time, downtown Atlanta, nobody was, of course, working, and downtown was isolated. And the people who were there, nobody was around to give them any change, or no one was there to help them or anything. So I really felt like that area really needed to be paid attention to. And that's when we started doing the meals, because there was such a need for people. I mean, I literally remember downtown handing a man a sandwich. And we always served our meals in a brown paper bag.
Yeah.
We always we wrapped the sandwich in a paper sack, and handed them a thing of sparkling water in a can. So no plastic. Yeah. We didn't have plastic. The utensils were all bamboo. Okay. So I handed the guy the meal, and I turned around. I took one step, and I heard the bag rip. And then I took another step because I was moving, right? I had to hand these meals out. And then I turned around because I heard something, and I turned around, and I see the man literally stuffing the sandwich down his mouth. He was that hungry.
Yeah.
And that's just shocking.
I wanted to ask you, because you'd probably know better than anyone else I can talk to right now, but how do you believe the pandemic has affected that community? I mean, what I find so off-putting or uncomfortable is it seems like the homelessness problem in Atlanta has gotten much, much worse. And I wondered what your thoughts are on it.
Yeah, it has. And, it's when you hear these stories of a number, like,
Yeah.
they're doing a count, of what the population is, and they always come up with some low screwball number, and I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that's not right, because there are so many. It's amazing what I was able to discover driving around the city. Like, I know where nooks and crannies and hidden treasure, I mean, not hidden treasures, but hidden areas of the city are.
Yeah.
Like, where communities go. Like, it's an encampment, but they don't want people to know about it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hidden. They're off the radar. But I knew where they were because of the people I was serving. And these people aren't getting counted.
Yeah.
No, they're not getting counted.
What do you think makes up that community? I mean, some people will say, like a common refrain that I hear is, "Oh, they're panhandling, or they're just asking for a handout or something." So, in your experience, what comprises this community? Who do you think?
Oh
How would you
gosh,
describe the people?
I've met people that had master's degrees, that were accountants, that were uh, I knew an attorney. I knew a lot of variety people with all kind of backgrounds, highly educated to people that just maybe were high school dropouts for some particular reason. Um, and I think that what gets overlooked is it all it takes for people in our society is to miss a paycheck. It
Yeah.
takes I knew one guy that he was a plumber, and he had his own little business, and his wife passed away, and he went into such grief that he lost everything.
Mm.
And he lost his business, he lost his house, he lost everything because of grief. And so, there's always a reason why people end up where they end up. But we don't necessarily, I think, as a society, we don't really think about what it's like to wear somebody else's shoe. And I always thought, I had an idea for a reality show of doing like a boot camp reality. Like, instead of parents sending their kids to like military boot camp, like, that's the era I grew up in. It's like, if you're
Yeah.
bad, my parents used to threaten me, we're going to send you to the military school. That shit's over with. But today I thought, well, how cool would it be, like, if we had parents from Beverly Hills, Park Avenue, wherever in America, that had children that kind of needed an experience, like an awakening. Instead of sending them to a military camp, they're going to send them to me, and so I'm going to spend the week with them, and we're going to pitch tents, and we're going to live like, we're not going to have a shower, we're going to pay for our food. We're not going to have a power source unless we can find it. I mean, we're truly, for 1 week, going to become invisible. And I think that kind of thing would really impact that child, that young adult, that young 18-year-old person. And as they go through life and go through college and their life and everything, I would imagine that experience would be with them forever. And I think that ripple effect of that compassion would explode. I thought, God, that'd be a great reality show. I'd love to do that.
I think you'd be great at that. Yeah,
I would
seriously.
love to do that. Oh my God. I mean, like, literally pitching tents, and we don't know where our food's going to come from. And this child may be, a child from a billionaire. But wouldn't that just be so to make people actually walk in someone else's shoe? That's the only way.
I think about it in a very, like, kind of superficial producer way, but it's like Bear Grylls does an urban landscape type thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think, anytime you can put it out there,
Yeah.
you know.
So, how would you relate this back with your own personal experience growing up? I mean, not a lot of, I'm not, I imagine most people that know who you are, do they know that you're from a little town in Texas that's only a few miles from the border of Mexico?
I think a lot of, well, I guess my followers and stuff will know that. And I always write about it. And this is a new little venture for me, but when my brother passed away on Christmas Day of 21,
21, yeah.
21, yeah, 21, December 25th, 2021. And so after he passed away, I started to write these little stories, and they were a reflection of him, my brother. He was my only sibling. He
Yeah.
was also an artist, and he was also gay. So we
Yeah.
were very connected. We were almost like, I guess, twins in a way. But so using that grief pushed me into writing and storytelling, but remembering my past and my childhood, but really talking about what it was like growing up, not just for me, but and also my brother, growing up 20 miles from the Mexican border. And my dad was a farmer, and you were either a farmer or a rancher down there. It was difficult. It was really difficult. I got picked on a lot. I'm obviously very gay. I just, I guess people, they picked that up early, and I guess even before I picked it up, in high school, and I got picked on a lot. I got bullied and picked on, and it's funny because my brother, because he was a photographer, and he in high school, this is really a funny story, and I know that he actually did this because my brother was very clever. My brother became really good friends with like the cheerleaders, and they all liked my brother, and because he was friends with the cheerleaders, it kind of gave him a little safeguard. It kind of protected him in a way, because they're not going to pick on Darrel because Darrel is girlfriend's good friend, and whatever. So he figured out a way to like really protect himself. And my brother protected me in high school until he graduated and I was left on my own. Yeah, growing up in a small town when you're, a little on the different side, I didn't know this, but my dad told me the story about 5 or 8 years ago.
Okay.
And it really just shook me because it happened when I was in high school. And it happened, I drove my dad's 1974 Chevrolet Cheyenne blue and white pickup truck. And it was really cool. And he still has it and he still drives it. And it's super cool. But I used to drive that in high school. And somebody unscrewed the wheel, the nuts on the tires, because I lived in the country, so they knew that I was driving down roads to get home because I was leaving that party. It was at a party, and they unscrewed the nuts to the tire, which means that if I hit a particular speed, I guess the tire would have come off and flipped me. And, the intent was, let's just get, but that happened in a small town.
Yeah.
Because you're different. I saw the world differently.
It's kind of hard for me to fathom because I don't know, like you've been through so much. Your personal history puts you at the center of, I mean, only in this lifetime has it kind of become acceptable to be gay or
Uh-huh.
to be different, like you said. And I gotta imagine it must have been terrifying growing up.
Oh gosh. I couldn't wait to like get the hell out of there and 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 run. Like when I graduated, God, I just, I hated leaving my parents because I was very close to them. I am very close to my parents. My parents are still alive, and I'm very close to them. But I couldn't wait to get out of that small town because I knew that there was so much more that was waiting for me. I needed to get out. I needed to,
Yeah.
it was such a small town. But yeah, in my lifetime, I've seen it really change a lot, and for the better. And we still have a long road to go. I mean, there's still, states that want to ban, alienate and ban, and
I find it weird. I find it weird because the things that they want to ban are just totally like, it's like, is this really the thing you're clinging on to? Like drag shows. It's like
I know,
I
because
don't
drugs
know.
kill so many people like guns.
Yeah, it kills the alpha male in all of us. I don't know. It's very weird. But I wanted to kind of let's get back to talking about your brother a little bit. You're both artists, or he was an artist, you're an artist. How did y'all differ though as artists? What were his influences versus yours? I know that the piece behind you is done by Darrel, correct?
Yeah, that's my brother's.
Yeah.
One of his last pieces that he did. And he was working on a series, and it was all in this. It's indigo. It's it's a stain, so it's not like pigment paint, or it's not like
Yeah.
acrylic. It's a stain.
Yeah.
And he was working on doing a whole series on the blue and the white and whatever, and they were freaking amazing. But my brother was a really um, uh, he could paint anything. He could draw anything. He could paint anything. I was never a great drawer. Like I can't really sketch anything. I couldn't like sit there and draw you. My brother could draw
Mm.
you in 2 seconds. He had that. I can't. I would be able to do something more abstract when it came to doing you. I couldn't like
Yeah.
paint you or draw you, but he could. So
What's so powerful about your work, because I've grown up around it, so I was kind of exposed to it, but there's this strong, the word that Jay used to describe, my boss used to describe your work when he was looking at it, is it's very conceptual. But the way I describe it is there's a certain level of quality you bring to your work that's hard to appreciate in a photograph or even in a description of it. You have to kind of be in front of it to really appreciate it. But it gets at the concept that it kind of gets at is all of your work is conservational. It all preserves something of the past. So I wanted to know, is that always been with you? Is that kind of theme continued through all your work, or is it something you've developed over time, or what's really the ethos, if you have one, behind why you create stuff?
yeah, well, that is it. I think it's very observant of him, but I think that I've always liked to uh, save anything that I could save. Like
Yeah.
when I started, again, it was with the found objects, and I would drag in anything from off the streets and turn it into art because I wanted to save it.
Yeah.
I did a series one time, years ago, a long time ago. I was with she's no longer here, but I was with Fago Gallery, and I did
Yeah.
a whole series on fabric and
Hmm.
good fabric. Like I found all this old vintage fabric that was fantastic, and I would shred them, in little what do you call it, strips, and
Yeah.
then I would lay them on the board because I don't paint on canvas. I always painted it on board and birch, and lay it down in whatever grid pattern, and then I would take duct tape and I would shred the long piece of the duct tape and I would build the grid. So it was just one big grid. And then I would cover it all in silicone. And so it to preserve it and but glue it down, everything archival and whatever. But that was all saving the fabric.
Yeah.
And the pieces were all very abstract, and far away they looked, wow, what is that? And then as you got up closer to it, you really realize, oh, and you get really close to it, you can see the shreds of the fabric, and you know that it's fabric because somebody was throwing away a whole bunch of fabric, and I couldn't let that happen.
We will not stand for this.
No.
But you get at something that's kind of at the heart of your artwork, which is it's very textural. It's very, it invites you to touch it, which is kind of unusual for painting or even mixed media. Is you don't usually get a sense of depth that you're able to achieve with that work. And so my appreciation of what you've done over time is, regardless of whether it was mixed media like with the interwoven fabrics or the sewing of street maps, is
I love that.
I do too. Is it gives you a kind of a different way to appreciate art. Is it's not so much about how it looks, which is important, but it's also about how you interpret it, how it feels, how it is meant to be experienced.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. It's interesting that I had forgotten that I had done that series, and I've done series in my life where nobody saw them. I didn't show them to my dealer at the time, and I just did them for me. But one time I did a whole series on aerial views of cities that I had been to. So they were all cities that I had been to. So I would take like an aerial view of, Paris or, Mexico City or wherever I'd been, and do an aerial view and draw it on paper. And then I would stitch it. I'd sit there and just like stitch it and sew it. So when you're looking at it from 3 feet away, you're looking at it and you're thinking, well, what is that? And then as you really got closer to it and you see the threading, you see the needle and the thread, but those were aerial views. And there were aerial views of places that I'd been. So I documented that.
Yeah. So why, and we'll get to the larger question, which is, what is this form of storytelling that you're trying to tease out over time? But I wanted to ask while we're on the subject is what kind of inspired you to do the maps in the first place? Was there anything in particular?
No, well, I think it was really documenting that I had been there, that I had walked on those streets, that I had been there, because I would go on Google. How did I do that? I guess
Google Earth.
I guess I don't remember how I did it. That was a long time ago. I did those. I did that series, but somehow I think that it was an acknowledgement of where I had traveled to and where I had been, and I guess I wanted to, hold on to that memory. I guess as a little kid, when it's funny, my mom had such wanderlust growing up. I mean, her dad and her mom took her, they traveled, and my mom got out. My dad, on the other hand, hated traveling. My brother and I, when we were little, really, he didn't want to leave the house and he didn't like traveling. And my brother and I always we had both wanderlust. I mean, we wanted to get out and see the world and have an adventure and travel. And, when I started to travel and I had those opportunities, I guess I just really wanted to, just save it, I guess, that's why I did the series, because they they were all places that I had traveled to. They weren't places that I'd never been, and I'm just going to do it because oh my God, I see this beautiful place in Buenos Aires, and I've never been to Buenos Aires,
Yeah.
so let me do that. No, they were cities and places that I'd been to.
It's a very tactile representation of your memories there, your experience there, because you're literally like piercing the paper and sewing in the detail of streets and canals and stuff like that. So it's
Yeah, and it's really funny because you don't really see that details or how much work went in that until you turn the piece around and you see,
yeah.
oh my God,
Yeah.
all the work. I mean, it's a lot of work, but yeah, I loved it. But I guess it is preservation of myself. I guess it was just me.
Mm.
It really is. I guess it all just goes back to storytelling. I've
Yeah,
always loved.
I was gonna say, let's talk about that a little bit because storytelling is kind of a new thing for you, but you're doing a lot with it, and it's complemented by the photography that you take. So I just wanted to, how did that start, and where do you think it's going for you?
Gosh, well, it started again I always, on my Instagram page, the only things that I post on my Instagram page are the actual photos that that I took. I don't post anything else. I use Instagram as like my website,
Okay.
but so I've always, every time I would take a photograph, I would whatever. But when my brother passed away and I started to write. I needed to write to push through the grief, and writing helped me with that. Writing actually um, uh, made me climb off the ledge because I was getting to a point where I was really starting to feel depression like all over me, just like washing all over my body. I was so depressed. I didn't leave the house for day upon day, and I knew that that's just not my personality. I am pretty positive and uplifting, and I believe in tomorrow is going to be an adventure, and life is an adventure, and I believe that, and I always have believed that. But I was starting to get into a dark place, and I knew that I needed to write. For some reason, I just felt like I needed to start writing, and so I started writing these little stories. And the reason people ask me, why are your stories so short? I mean, they're you can read them in a minute or under, and
Yeah.
they're that way because my brother he was so severe ADD, and he could only read up to a point. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know how the guy graduated. I don't know how he went to college. Like, I don't know how he did that because
Yeah.
he couldn't spend time like to sit down and read a book. Oh no, I'd rather paint. Why do I need to read a book? I'd rather paint. But so I did that because that's what helped him. I mean, that's who he was. He could read something in a minute, but anything past that, he's not going to sit there and read like an hour-long New York Times article. He's not going to do it. So
Okay.
I started to do that and write these little stories, and then I would just at random pull up a photograph, and my photos and my stories don't connect, and I don't want them to connect. They don't need to connect. I'm not everything has to be perfect, and it's not part of the clog or cog or whatever. No, it's just at random. I pull a photo and I write a little short story, and it's amazing the feedback that I've gotten from people, and just like when I post this on my Facebook page, the amount of private messages that I get on Messenger sharing their story, them telling me, oh, I read your story and I can relate to this, and they share their story. So my goal is to keep writing, keep doing the more photos, keep writing in these little short stories, and I want to put them in a book. and I want to
Okay.
I want to do a book to in memoriam for my brother, but also to, when I do the book, launch a website that will allow people to come on. They don't have to, I want to build this website where you don't have to log in or, share your password, create a password or anything like that. I want people to just come on the damn site and be given a, little box of, 300 word count or whatever, and let them share their story.
Yeah.
Let them just get it out, because I found that writing, it has been extremely therapeutic for me. Like, I don't know what I would have. I think if I had not started to write and remember the stories about my brother and my childhood and my past and whatever, that I would probably be at a doctor's office every week,
Mm.
probably on some prescriptions for depression.
Mm.
But I really think that writing, and when people share their stories, is healing. And I would love to be able to have launch a website where anyone can go on there and just start sharing and healing, whether they use their name or make up a name, whatever. As long as they get it out and they actually heal from it, I
Yeah.
think that would be very helpful.
What's amazing is, what you're suggesting is not, it's not without things that you can compare it to. Like the thing that we talked about a little while ago was, it reminded me of Post Secrets or even the Moth Radio Hour. But what you kind of do is you condense all of those types of formats into this thing of like, we want it to be a healing process for the writer. We want it to be an opportunity for the reader to remember with this person something that they cherished.
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to, there's not this level of snarkiness or like this underhanded joke that's saying like, because it's anonymous or because it's a short story, it doesn't have the impact of like, something very, uh, uh, I don't know how to describe it. It doesn't need to be in long form, or it doesn't need to be sarcastic, or it doesn't need to be funny in order for it to land emotionally.
You know what it really, the thing that I really think is so important is, I don't want to have I don't want the grammar police around.
Okay.
I don't want people looking at it and feeling like they have to, put the period there, the semicolon there, if they have to do this. I don't want any of that.
Yeah.
I want people to just get in there and let it go without being, you know, um, edited on some degree. My brother was very intelligent. He was
Yeah.
he was extremely street savvy, but he couldn't spell to save his life. He was an off. I mean, and my brother, when he sat down and he would write, like, I mean, I literally seen this my whole life. He would write a whole page and it'd be one sentence. He didn't have time to sit there and proof and edit and get in his head. He needed to
Yeah.
get it out. And that's what I really want to focus on, is really letting people have a safe spot for them to come and just purge. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be whatever. Just get it out and tell your damn story, because I think that's so healing and beneficial to so many people. And that's what I want to do.
I think it profoundly contrasts with how people approach stuff like social media. It's like you're saying, screw all this stuff that we do for attention. Like, let's tell me what actually matters with you.
Well, what's
You know?
wild is that you say that, and I think about this all the time. I think social media has been, good on a lot of levels, and then on another level, or on some other levels, it has really dumbed down our society. We
Mm,
are a society now where we would rather watch TikTok videos than we would read a book.
yeah.
Or I mean, we
Or we don't even have the time to watch a TV show. We'd rather watch a TikTok, or I'd rather like send you a TikTok than write out a message or whatever it is.
Well, yeah, and I take the time to, not only do I take the time to like write a story, and not a lot of people are 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 doing that today. I mean, everything is, it's a Twitter. It's enough to get on the Twitter, to get a tweet out, and you got so many characters, and that's it to make us point. So, and then all my photos are not taken with my iPhone. Like my photos are not. I don't use the filter on my iPhone to turn it to black and white. I have a camera that shoots 35 millimeter black and white film. And then
Yeah.
I go into the dark room, and then I hunch over for hours, leaning over the trays, looking. And if I wanted to, like a lot of people today they would, write a Twitter little story, and then, take their iPhone and take a little black and white photograph. And I
Yeah.
gotta say, since I've been doing this now, and I know what the labor of love is for the art, my art. When you're on my Instagram page and you see every photograph on there, those are actual photographs. Those are
Yeah.
on paper. They're not on the phone. So, I like that. I like that connection. I really, and I think about that all the time. And it wasn't by luck that happened. I think, it's deliberate. It's just somewhere in my subconscious. I put it together that way, but that's really at the core of my DNA. That's really what I am.
Something that you used to do, you used to teach as well as do art. So,
Another life. Yeah,
I know
6 years.
you've done everything, Daniel. But I guess what I wanted to ask was, what would your advice be to young artists who are trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get in the field, whether it be fine arts or commercial arts or whatever it is? What are some of the principles that you would want to impart with them?
Well, I was an art teacher for 6 years at a children's psychiatric hospital, and so the the background was different. For me, I had a different population, and God, they were brilliant. They were freaking brilliant. But I think all kids, when they're young, are brilliant if they're allowed to express themselves through, art.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we have a lot of school systems in the country that have cut back on their art programs. So, but I think that, I've heard this my whole life, when I was in galleries, that you have to pick your medium,
Mm,
and you have to stay with it. So that's
mm,
how people identify you, and
yeah.
they get to know you, and that's how they recognize you. And I always thought that is such bullshit, because artist has to change. Like,
Yeah.
every artist, every person that is an artist, an actor or director or whatever, you change, you grow, you grow.
Yeah.
You don't stay stagnant in a genre that you've done for 20 years because you're beating that horse. And so I would tell people to not listen to that. So when they feel inclined to shift and to explore and to experiment, do it. Because you should always do artwork for you.
Okay.
Never for anyone else. You should do it for you. It's either therapeutic, you've got something that you want to share with the world, so do it. But it's not because you want to become famous or rich or any of that shit. You want to do it because it helps you. It builds your character. And that's what I've always believed in.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like, is there anything you would have done differently, if, like looking back, if you could send a message to your younger self? I know you said earlier that like you wish you had done photography, but I imagine, like we've already discussed, is your personal journey is such that you kind of realize things at the right moment. Like you are where you're supposed to be, no matter where you are.
Absolutely. I mean, I wish I would have picked up the camera earlier, but you know, I mean, I'm in my 50s. I got, a few more decades left. As long as my eyes work, I can take a picture. So I'm okay with that. But it really is the journey, and I think people have to. I think everybody out there, if they're on an artistic path or whatever path they're on, everything that you've done yesterday or last year or a decade ago is really part of your DNA today. It's what brought you here. And so I don't have any regrets. I really don't. I think everybody should just kind of know that those steps that you took years ago led you to where you are now. So it's part of the adventure, and life is an adventure.
Yeah. It's important to remember. It's easy for me to forget that sometimes. I wanted to just kind of probe your mind, because I know you have this great encyclopedic knowledge of so many artists and so many creatives that influence your work. Who are some people that you like to bring attention to?
Photographer wise, or just
photographer, artist? Just who do you think I should be paying attention to right now?
Oh,
other
man.
than you.
I love the old photographers. I love Walker Evans. I love Tina Modotti. I love Edward Weston. I love Mapplethorpe, but not just the controversial Mapplethorpe, but the real, the early work. I love Dorothea Lange. I love people who, like Dorothea Lange and Walker Evans were people that in the 20s and 30s, were able to be a part of, they worked for the government. They were on an art program, that they were paid to go out to the country and document it. And that's what they did. They documented all these people. So the very famous portrait of the migrant woman, with her child in her lap, and, she's looking at Dorothea Lange is, oh my God, it captured that moment of where we were in the country. I mean, there was the Dust Bowl that was happening at the time, and people were losing. They couldn't, the farmers were losing their crops. And then Walker Evans was walking, driving around the country and looking and meeting all these interesting people and documenting their lives. Oh my God. I mean, it's fantastic. So I love that. And painters who have always, I love one of my favorite painters has always been Francis Bacon.
Okay.
It's really funny that I say that, because my brother loved Francis Bacon, hated his studio. My brother was extremely clean in his studio. Very clean, everything organized. The floor, you could eat on the floor. I mean, it was so perfect. Everything was, all the brushes were lined up, and he took such great care. My studio, when you were little and your mom and your Aunt Nina brought you to my studio, you walked around in this pile of shit everywhere. I mean, rusted tin and nails and wood and everything in piles. And it was it was like Francis Bacon. I mean, his studio, you know, his photograph,
Yeah.
the famous photograph of Francis Bacon's studio with how it's just all chaos.
Hold on.
That was
Let me see if I can
my
pull it up.
studio. And then that was my brother's studio was like Georgia O'Keeffe. If you looked
Yeah.
at photographs of Georgia O'Keeffe, everything was clean and organized. Me was complete chaos.
See,
But that's
but you've also, I, I, I think you think it's more disorganized than most people realize. It's like, Daniel, you're a very clean person. Like,
I am, but not in my studio. For some reason, I don't know why. I'm very clean about my household and my bedroom and my bath and all of that. I'm very clean about that. But when it came to my studio, I just believed you get in there and you work.
yeah,
You know, you work. And even with all that chaos, I mean, when I was doing the found objects and you would come over, that's so funny. I remember the day when your mom and your aunt came with you to my studio, and I
yeah.
thought, oh God, I hope he has his tetanus shot. Oh God, because there's so much rust and shit all over the studio. Oh my God.
I think I remember you saying something about that. I was like, don't be careful what you touch. I remember you were doing this thing with graphite pencils. You were doing flowers with graphite, and it was like, but it was like caked on. It was so much graphite that like it's kind of hard to fathom how you did it.
There have been so many different pieces of art in my life that I've done. And had I listened to instructors and teachers and people and art dealers that told me, stay where you're, you know, stay in your lane, Daniel, stay in your lane, Daniel, I would
Yeah,
have never had ventured out and really figured out what I'm capable of as an artist. Like, I
yeah.
think that's what's so important, to really push your limits and try new genres and not get settled in, you
Well,
know,
what I think is,
it's so
uh,
corporate and it's so money driven today, and I think it's beyond that.
yeah, I mean, what's interesting is, you've been in the High Museum. I know you had a piece that used to be in Hartsfield Jackson.
It's still there.
It's cool. I haven't traveled in so long, so that tells you like where my point of reference is. Um, but you kind of, it's not that you have a lack of respect for those kinds of accomplishments, but they just don't seem to matter that much to you. So what is kind of an artistic accomplishment for you? What is one of the big things that you think, like, as an artist, if you get to do this, then you're doing better than you think?
Well, I've always believed that, you know, anytime you have like a high, like when I had a real high in my art career, like a really good one, I know that just around the corner is going to be a low, because
Yeah,
that's life. You know, I mean, it's life is about, it's a roller coaster ride. It's going to be up and it's
yeah,
going to be down, and it's all about savoring that particular moment. So I would savor that particular moment, knowing in my head that around the corner it's going to be, you know, something is going to be pulled out and you're going to have to do it all over again or whatever. And I like living that way. Uh, I like living where you don't really, that there's no structure, that there's no, like, I never built a dream board with, you
yeah,
know, everything that I wanted on to achieve in my career. I never, I mean, and why would I want to do that? I mean, why? I think that you should just let things happen. And I've always been very grateful for, you know, I had my work in, I think there are 5 museums in the country, and then there's one in Mexico City, there's Germany, and there's another, I I'm not sure. I think there's somewhere else in Europe, but I'm really not sure. And I'm
yeah.
awful when it comes to doing my biography to keep
Yeah.
up with all that shit, because I don't really think about adding that stuff, and I don't think that shit's important, because people who look at art are not reading your biography. They're looking
Yeah.
at the work, and if that work just happens to inspire them or touch them, that's great. But they're not looking at your damn biography, so who cares about that? I never cared about that shit.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's one of those. It's like there's tension between those two subjects of like the art and the artist and how you connect those two. But what's amazing about knowing you for as long as I have is you've never really gotten in your, whether the painting sold or whether the work sold or whatever, you remained um, confident in what you were doing. Like it wasn't a matter of oh, I did this wrong and now people aren't going to buy it or whatever it is. It was like I made this and people are stupid for not buying it, kind of thing. Or if they bought it, then it was great. But it was like you just had a devil may care kind of attitude towards what the critical reception of it was. It was, and so I guess what we should leave with today is how do you foster that level of confidence? What would you attribute that confidence to in your lifetime?
Well, again, if I had listened to the instructors and the art teachers and the this and the that to say, pick the road and stay in the lane and don't get, don't feel
Yeah.
like you got to do sculpting and painting and photography and all of that stuff, then I don't know. It's the same kind of way, I think. I think it's the same for having enough faith and trust in yourself
Mm.
I don't listen to other people. I never did listen to other people. There weren't a whole bunch of people that I listened to, because it's an opinion. When
Okay.
somebody writes anything about you, it's an opinion. When they
Yeah.
talk about you or whatever, it's an opinion. When they judge your artwork, it's just an opinion. It has no
Yeah.
bearing on you. And I can really honestly say that I think that comes with the foundation that I had growing up. I had good parents. I had that foundation that no, I mean, growing up where I did, where, I was bullied, would have I mean, it just, in a way, I guess it does make you a little bit stronger, and it made me stronger.
Mm.
And I don't really care about, the sound of a stranger, because that's what they are. I think for artists, you got to make the artwork because it's all you think about. It's all you want to
Yeah.
do. It's like breathing to people,
Mm.
and that's, gosh, that's really wonderful. So I would just recommend people just stay on that path and keep, and don't listen, and don't ask people what do they think about your artwork. Like,
Yeah.
I don't ask people. I don't ask people like, well, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? What do you think of this? What about this? What do you think? It's an
Who
opinion.
cares?
You don't need it. No, you do it because you.
So I want to leave with one last question. I hope this isn't too personal, but what are some of the things you miss most about your brother Darrel?
Oh gosh. I see things that like that were funny. My brother had a really like twisted sense of humor. We looked alike. I mean, we were the same height. We had the same jawline. I mean, we had the eye. I mean, everything. We were like as close to identical twins as you could get. And I
Mm.
see things that are funny, and he had a really wicked sense of humor, and I want to send that to him. Like, I want to text him that, and I
Yeah.
and I still have him on my phone, and it's been a year and 3 months, and I still have his phone number in my favorites, and I'll periodically go through the text messages that we sent,
Mm.
and look at them and relive them. And yesterday, I had a friend in Texas that had a painting, a piece of artwork, and they didn't really know that it was, well, until they turned it over. They years ago, I went to my brother's studio, and it was during the Christmas time, and I had a little 12 by 12 inch wooden frame, and I took a photograph, and my brother took a photograph, and our goal was to create something with the same photograph but two different styles of art. And because I'm not, I'm not a painter like he was, so I took like 100 bottles of paint, and I squirted dots, lines and lines, and of every color you can think of.
Yeah.
And with the painting, with the painting not in the center, the photograph not in the center, but kind of like on the corner, but in the left hand bottom of the painting.
Yeah.
And everything else was just those blobs of different colors. And then he filled it with beeswax, right?
Okay.
And on the back of it, he said, this was done by Daniel Troppy. He came up to visit me one Christmas, and this is what we did in the studio. And he says, I love him so much. And I just saw that yesterday.
Wow.
I mean, my friend took a photograph of the, I'll show it to you because you'll really, I think you'll appreciate it. But I'll show you the, here it is.
Yeah, move it over a little bit more. Oh, wow. That's very cool.
And so it's just the dots, and then of course that's the photograph, right?
Yeah.
And then here is what he said on the, I don't know if you can read that or not, but I love this so much. I love him.
That's amazing.
But yeah. I love that he, that he wrote that. I mean, I hadn't seen that piece of artwork in I don't know how long. I don't even know when we did it. I don't, we didn't sign it or anything, but he loved doing things like that. My brother was also an art teacher. He taught art at a college. And when he was in college, before he was going to graduate, back in 82 or 3 or whatever it was, I can't remember, he had a job offer to be a professor at Stanford, and he turned it down because he wanted to paint. He didn't want to teach. He wanted to paint. That's so he turned down a very lucrative, very nice, cushy job because
he turned out all right, right?
Because he wanted to paint. Yeah, I mean, he really believed that you got X amount of time on the planet and you got to make the best of it. And he wanted to paint. He didn't want to tell people how to paint. When you go to college, they tell you, they kind of steer you into that direction. He wanted to be much freer. And for that, I've always loved that story. I remember when he told me that, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
And then, of course, I gotta imagine it's like, you're like, are you crazy? But yeah, it seemed to work out for him. All things considered.
Because he listened to his gut. He listened to his inner voice, and he wanted to paint, so he sacrificed. And art, like all good things in life, is a sacrifice. You make sacrifices to paint, to sculpt, to photograph. You make sacrifices so that you can do that because it helps you deal with whatever. I mean, my artwork has been my therapist for 3-4 decades.
Yeah.
So,
Daniel, I hope when you get a little bit further along on your book that you're able to come back on and we can talk again about it, because I think you're just like you're an abundance of joy for me to talk to. And I think your insight and your point of view really helps people like me, like artists, like art workers and makers of any ilk, kind of have that level of self-esteem and confidence in their abilities. So it's always great.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that. Those are kind words. But really, I've always believed that you gotta do your work. You know,
Yeah.
if you're talented, if you're a writer, you gotta write. If you're a
It's
photographer,
like,
you gotta take photos. If you're a painter, you gotta paint. You just have to. It's therapy.
yeah,
It is therapy.
it is. It is. And I think it's easy to get away from that, but appreciating it for that at its basis seems to be one of the things that keeps me going. You know, one of the reasons why I still appreciate art, even if if I wouldn't buy it, it wouldn't matter. It's the act of creation itself has its own rewards.
Well,
So
yeah, but Ian, you're a really good writer.
yeah,
You just,
thank you.
you're a good writer.
I'm
You're
just
good
getting
at
started,
working
baby.
as a writer. So, well,
I'm
I
just
mean, doing what you're doing, interviewing people, I think it helps you, your background, because you write, you
yeah,
ask these questions, you want these questions answered. That's
mm,
writing. That's right. So your background as a writer so propels you into this. It truly, truly does. I think I mean, that when you think about it, when I think about it, that is pure destiny. I mean, that's when all those walks from yesterday help today.
mm,
Because it brings
yeah,
it in, it brings the focus. It's like taking a picture. You can't take if I picked up my camera and just snapped it without focusing, I'm gonna get a shit photo.
yeah.
But if you focus and then
Mm,
take the photo, it's like you with writing.
mm.
I
That's
think
kind
that,
of you've just given me a lot to think about, man.
well, there's a connection between
There
your
is.
you as a writer, and then doing your podcasting and interviewing and listening to people. Those are
Yeah,
qualities, I think, as a writer, that I think you can move the ball quicker, faster, because
yeah.
that's your background. So
Well,
that's
I
my
hope
2 cents.
I'm gonna try and make you proud, but I'm gonna let you go, Daniel. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ian. Thank
Hold
you
on.
for the
I'm
time.
gonna pause the recording and then we'll say goodbye off camera real quick.
Okay, all right.
All right.